In Shedeur Sanders' rookie season, survival became second nature. Pocket collapses weren't rare, they were routine. The numbers tanked, the reads blurred, and the instinct to trust the play design was replaced by the instinct to run. That wasn't development. That was erosion. Enter Todd Monken. He didn't ask Sanders to adapt to dysfunction. He refused the premise entirely. His solution: rebuild the environment, not the...
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
George Warhop, his first major hire, signaled how deep the fix would go. Warhop wasn't hired to experiment. He was hired to restore trust. In the pocket, in the play call, in the process. For once, the Browns aren't gambling on upside or praying for outliers. They're placing a calculated bet on alignment. Monken's offense, Warhop's protection, Schwartz's defense, all orbit the same core logic. Quarterbacks don't develop in chaos. They develop in clarity. And in 2026, clarity is no longer optional. It's the foundation. This isn't a rebuild. It's a redefinition. What Todd Monken has done in Cleveland goes beyond typical off-season maneuvering. This isn't about installing a new playbook and hoping the team clicks. This is about surgically isolating the root causes of dysfunction and attacking them with intentional, expert precision. The entire organization has now been realigned around one outcome: making Shedeur Sanders successful. And it starts with language. Not the throwaway kind you hear in most press conferences. Monken didn't say Sanders was important. He didn't call him promising. He called him the top priority. That word choice wasn't cosmetic, it was structural. Because in NFL front offices, how you phrase your commitments matters. That one phrase signaled an overhaul. And it didn't just stay in the press. It became operational. The Browns began to make decisions through a new filter. Does this directly accelerate Shedeur Sanders' development? If not, it doesn't make the cut. That's what brought George Warhop into the fold. Monken didn't hire him because they'd worked together before, though they had. He hired him because Warhop represents the kind of high-level, immediate impact expertise required to fix what nearly unraveled Sanders' rookie season: the offensive line. Let's be real, pass protection wasn't a weakness. It was a liability. Sanders' numbers told one story, but the film told the truth. He wasn't inaccurate. He was hurried. He wasn't turnover-prone. He was under siege. And he didn't lack pocket presence, he lacked pockets. Every fundamental flaw pointed to one thing: an environment that made quarterback play impossible. And that's where Warhop's real value comes in. This isn't just a veteran coach who knows technique. This is someone who understands system-wide cohesion. His resume spans every relevant blocking concept in modern football. He's fluent in zone. He's built gap schemes. He's deployed power sets. And now he's applying all of that to a unit that desperately needed foundational control. But even that wouldn't be enough if the scheme still worked against Sanders. That's where Monken showed his hand as a real coach, not just a play designer but an evaluator. Instead of shoehorning Sanders into the mobile QB formula he once ran with Lamar Jackson, Monken pivoted. Completely. Gone are the RPO-heavy looks and improvisation-based structures. In their place, timing, dropbacks, progressions, route trees that open up space based on rhythm, not chaos. It's a philosophical shift, but also a deeply empathetic one. Monken didn't just install a system. He studied Sanders' traits, recognized what makes him effective, and built the system around that. That level of coaching maturity is rare. And it didn't stop with scheme. The front office bought in too. Strength and conditioning? Refocused. Emphasis on quarterback stability over explosive athleticism. Scouting priorities? Refined. Clean route runners over athletic experiments. Smart linemen over unpolished projects. The team isn't chasing traits, they're chasing execution. And that change is cultural. It filters into how the locker room operates. Monken's clear public stance eliminates the ambiguity that wrecks team dynamics. Everyone, from starting lineman to the last skill guy on the roster, knows the mission. No internal competition for reps. No wondering who's in charge. It's Shedeur. Full stop. That kind of clarity doesn't just help the quarterback. It aligns the team. And for a city like Cleveland, that's a seismic shift. This is a franchise that's tripped over its own identity for decades. Analytics one year, grit the next. Pass first, then ground and pound. Quarterback rotations. GM overreach. It's all been noise. But now, everything is pointing in one direction. And that means 2026 isn't a slow burn. It's a test. If Sanders succeeds in this new structure, it's not just a win for him. It's confirmation that the Browns have finally built a system instead of relying on hope. That when dysfunction was diagnosed and removed, there was a real quarterback waiting underneath. That's the whole premise of this season. And you can already see the potential outcomes. If Warhop's line delivers on the promise of consistency, and Monken's offense flows the way it's designed to, then the only thing standing between Sanders and Pro Bowl caliber production is opportunity. Not raw skill. Not ceiling. Structure. And now he has that. What's most interesting here isn't how loud Cleveland is being, it's how quietly confident this all feels. There's no fake hype campaign. No chest pounding. Just a surgically precise execution of a quarterback-first identity. And when paired with Schwartz's already dominant defense, you start to see the symmetry. The offense no longer has to play hero ball. The defense doesn't have to carry the entire franchise. There's finally balance. That equilibrium is what makes this version of the Browns different. They're not top-heavy. They're not hoping for a shootout. They're built for consistency week to week. And if that consistency holds, then everything shifts. The quarterback gets better. The offense moves the chains. The defense stays fresh. The team wins. And suddenly Cleveland isn't just improved, they're competitive. Not in spurts. Not in October. Over the full season. That's the test. If Shedeur delivers in a system designed to let him breathe, then we finally get a clear answer. Not about his talent, but about what this franchise is capable of when it finally gets out of its own way. So here's the question: have the Browns finally cracked the code? Or is this just the latest chapter in a saga that never quite turns the corner? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Tap like if you think this new Browns identity has teeth. Send this to someone still clinging to this same old Cleveland narrative. And hit subscribe. We'll be tracking every throw, every pocket, every decision as Shedeur Sanders steps into the most important season of his career, and maybe, just maybe, the rebirth of a franchise that's long overdue for one. And here's the thing: if the Browns pull this off, it won't just be a good football story. It'll be a warning shot to the rest of the league. Because for years, Cleveland was the cautionary tale. The team you pointed to when you wanted to show what happens when dysfunction runs unchecked. Talented players swallowed by mismanagement. Coaches cycling through revolving doors. Promising prospects chewed up and spit out by instability. But this version of the Browns? This is something the league hasn't seen from them. A top-down, quarterback-first, fully coordinated operation. There's no scrambling. There's no scapegoating. And most importantly, there's no confusion. Everyone, from Monken to Warhop to the strength coach, is working toward the same outcome: unlocking Shedeur Sanders. And if they succeed, they don't just redeem their quarterback, they rewrite their identity. Let's talk about what that could mean, because it's bigger than one win-loss column. If Sanders makes the leap and becomes a legitimate Pro Bowl contender, and all signs suggest that's the track he's on, then Cleveland suddenly becomes a place where quarterback development works. You think that doesn't matter? Ask every free agent wide receiver, every offensive coordinator, every draft prospect with options. In the NFL, perception is currency. And the Browns, for the first time in decades, are rebuilding theirs intentionally. They're not just chasing a playoff spot. They're chasing reputation. And that's why this 2026 season is bigger than any single box score. It's about proving that the Browns can do what winning franchises do. Build with purpose. Adapt when it matters. And support their most valuable player not with speeches, but with systems. And you know what's wild? The formula isn't that complicated. A protection plan that lets your quarterback go through progressions. An offensive scheme designed around anticipation, not desperation. A defense that takes pressure off the offense instead of piling more on. Put that together and the quarterback has room to breathe. Give Shedeur that room, and everything changes. Because the flashes were already there last year. You don't throw with that kind of precision under pressure if you don't have something special in you. But flashes aren't enough. The NFL eats flashes alive. You need flow. And now, finally, Sanders has a shot at that. He's not competing for reps. He's not adjusting to a mismatched system. He's not dodging free rushers 2 seconds after the snap. He's walking into 2026 with a system designed for him, a line designed to protect him, and a team designed to rally around him. If that doesn't work, sure, questions will be fair. But if it does, we're talking about the most important turning point in modern Browns history. And no, that's not an exaggeration. Because what happens when you finally get quarterback development right? You don't just get better stats. You get sustainability. That's been the missing piece in Cleveland for years. They've had elite defenses before. They've had weapons. They've had short bursts of promise. But without the quarterback operating in sync with a tailored system, it never lasts. Now it can. And it's not just about Sanders becoming the guy, it's about the Browns making him the guy. That's the difference. That's the plan. And for once, it actually makes sense. It's grounded in film, backed by coaching credibility, fueled by a strategy that spans departments, not just playbooks. This isn't a gamble on upside. It's a bet on infrastructure. Warhop represents that. Monken's pivot represents that. The reshaped conditioning programs, the aligned scouting strategy, it's all part of a framework that's been missing in Cleveland for 2 decades. It's not even about innovation. It's about discipline. And discipline wins. Not in flashy ways, but in consistent, system-driven, week-by-week execution. That's what the best teams do. They don't pray for fourth-quarter miracles. They put their quarterback in a position to control the game from the first drive. And now, for the first time, the Browns are built to do the same. So yeah, Pro Bowl talk isn't outlandish anymore. It's just math. Clean pockets plus anticipation-based timing plus defensive balance equals high-efficiency quarterback play. And high-efficiency quarterback play, in a league that lives and dies by QB performance, gets you wins. It gets you playoff pushes. It gets you respect. And don't underestimate what that could mean for a franchise that's lived under a cloud of doubt for longer than some of its players have been alive. 2026 isn't just about Shedeur Sanders becoming a star. It's about the Browns proving that they're no longer allergic to stability, that they can execute a clear plan, that when they say reset, they mean alignment, not chaos, and that when they pick a quarterback they're actually willing to build around him. Because if that's what this season becomes, if the commitment to Sanders translates into wins, efficiency, and control, then the Browns don't just silence their critics. They shut down a legacy of dysfunction. And that might be the most dramatic twist of all. And here's where it gets real, because it's not just about Shedeur Sanders making a leap. It's about Cleveland finally choosing not to self-destruct. This team has never had a talent problem. They've had a timeline problem. Every year the window shifts. Every regime change restarts the clock. Quarterbacks drafted into chaos, schemes abandoned before they settle, identities reshuffled mid-season. That's what kills development. That's what buries potential. And that's exactly what Todd Monken is out to destroy. Because naming Sanders the top priority wasn't about fluff or fan service. It was a declaration of permanence. It said, we're not moving off this. We're not shifting focus in October. We're not drafting a contingency plan in April. We're building everything around one quarterback right now. And to follow through, they did something revolutionary for this franchise. They didn't panic. They didn't scapegoat. They didn't overhaul for the sake of headlines. They studied what went wrong, identified protection as the root cause, and addressed it with precision. George Warhop wasn't hired for a vibe. He was brought in because Shedeur's tape proved something most fans already suspected. When he had time, he was excellent. The ball came out on time. The reads were clean. The anticipation throws were pro-level. But how often did that happen in 2025? Not often enough. Because protection broke down constantly. The pocket was a rumor. Sanders wasn't just adjusting to the NFL, he was dodging a jailbreak on every snap. And now that's over. Warhop's role isn't theoretical. It's targeted. His job isn't just to coach technique, it's to restore order in a unit that's forgotten what cohesion feels like. His 3 decades of experience aren't trivia, they're tools. He's coached through every major era of NFL line play. And more importantly, he's coached in Cleveland. He knows what's expected. He knows the scrutiny. He knows what's broken. Which means he's not wasting time learning the terrain. He's fixing the trenches. And when that happens, everything changes for Sanders. Because Shedeur isn't a quarterback who thrives in broken plays. He's not going to turn chaos into magic every down. That's not his game. His game is built on rhythm. On clean mechanics. On trust. You give him structure and he'll beat you with precision. That's what Monken understood. That's why he didn't try to plug Sanders into the Lamar Jackson playbook. He didn't ask him to roll left, break contain, and read the defense on the fly. He built something new. A timing-based system. Designed routes. Drop-back consistency. Vertical spacing that rewards discipline over improvisation. This wasn't a style preference. It was a film-backed diagnosis. Monken saw exactly what kind of quarterback he had, and adapted. That alone should stop people in their tracks. Because most coaches don't do that. They force players into templates. They protect the scheme over the person. Monken flipped that script. And that decision could be the turning point this franchise has needed for years. Because everything is falling into alignment. The coaching staff isn't siloed. The offense and defense aren't battling for philosophical control. Jim Schwartz runs an elite defense that doesn't need gimmicks to dominate. Monken now runs an offense built not for style points but for consistency. And that gives Sanders what no quarterback in Cleveland has had in a generation: balance. He doesn't have to carry the franchise. He just has to execute. He doesn't have to be a superhero. He has to be himself. And when quarterbacks can do that, when they don't have to overcompensate for dysfunction, they grow rapidly. That's why this season isn't a waiting game. It's a litmus test. The infrastructure is in place. The protection is being rebuilt. The system has been reset. Now it's time to see if Sanders can meet the moment. And if he does, then the Pro Bowl isn't hype. It's a stepping stone. Because a successful Shedeur Sanders in a functioning Browns system means this team is done playing underdog. It means they're a factor. It means the AFC has one more legitimate contender in a conference already full of elite quarterbacks. That's what's on the line here. Not a feel-good story. Not a rebuild. Not a just give it a couple years storyline. An arrival. One quarterback. One system. One organization finally aligned. You can't overstate how rare that is in the NFL, especially in Cleveland. And if the Browns get this right, it doesn't just fix 2026. It rewrites the entire arc of a franchise that's been stuck in neutral since before some of its rookies were born. So now the question is, does Shedeur have it in him? Not just the talent. That part's clear. The real question is, can he seize the opportunity now that everything around him is finally functioning? Because the safety nets are gone. The excuses are gone. And for once, the support is actually there. That's the challenge. And the opportunity. And if it clicks, then we stop talking about the Browns like a curiosity. And we start talking about them like a blueprint. If you've been following this team, really following it, then you know how deep the scars run. This isn't just about turning a page. It's about proving that the Browns finally understand the assignment. That they're no longer chasing headlines, patching holes, or leaning on one miracle play to fix a decade of dysfunction. It's about structure. Ownership down to special teams. And that structure has one name at its core: Shedeur Sanders. He's not a sideshow. Not a placeholder. Not a backup plan they're reluctantly trying to develop. He's the blueprint. Monken didn't just hand him the job. He handed him the franchise. But not in a reckless, let's see what happens kind of way. In a fully supported, systematically constructed, every detail accounted for kind of way. And that's the difference. Because there's a world of space between being given the job and being positioned to succeed in it. The former is what Sanders got in 2025. The latter is what he's getting now. That shift is visible in every part of the team. Start with the protection. When Warhop took the job, he wasn't walking into a blank slate. He was walking into a disaster site. Inconsistent technique. No communication. No unit identity. Now, Warhop's presence means order is being restored at the most critical level of the offense, the line of scrimmage. You don't win games in this league unless your quarterback is standing upright. That's not theory. That's a law. And Sanders has already shown what happens when he gets just a little bit of time. He carves. He processes. He delivers with timing and anticipation you can't teach. But last year, that version of him barely saw the field. He was swallowed by pressure. Blamed for breakdowns that had nothing to do with decision-making and everything to do with dysfunction. That's why this year is so important. Because for the first time we're going to see what Sanders looks like in rhythm. And Monken's scheme is built to feed that rhythm. Gone is the improvisation-heavy chaos. This is a system of timing routes, progression reads, predictable drops, and designed leverage. A quarterback's dream, if that quarterback lives and breathes anticipation like Shedeur does. You don't make those kinds of schematic shifts unless you're all in. And Monken is all in. So is the front office. Every draft pick, every hire, every roster decision, they're all flowing from the same central question. Does this help Shedeur develop? That's not an exaggeration. That's a standard. And when a franchise finally stops hedging, stops guessing, and starts building, players respond. Coaches respond. And quarterbacks thrive. This isn't about creating a star. It's about removing the obstacles that stop stars from showing up in the first place. And in Cleveland, those obstacles have been systemic for years. But this year, they're being cleared out. One by one. So when Shedeur steps under center this season, it won't just be a test of his talent. It'll be a test of whether Cleveland can finally be the kind of team that deserves a quarterback like him. Because for once, the chaos isn't coming from within. The noise isn't internal. The stage is clean. And what happens next is entirely in their hands. So what do you think? Is this finally it? Is Cleveland done with the cycle of collapse? Is Shedeur about to show us the quarterback he's always been, only now with a team that's actually ready for him? Let us know in the comments. Tap like if you're starting to feel like this really could be the year it all flips. Share this with the fan who said they'd never buy in again. And hit subscribe. We'll be following every drive, every trend, and every answer the Browns give us in what might be their most pivotal season in decades. Because this time they're not hoping for change. They've built it,